Is there what I call a rational, passional alternative? Can we develop a new morality, drawing on the best of the past, but appropriate? And we are doing that. The liberation of women in the last century, the liberation of transgendered, of lesbians and homosexuals, the recognition that children have rights, that aged people have rights, that the handicapped have rights. These are all part of a new morality. You don't find that particularly in the area of sexuality, in the ancient religious literature, which condemned that. We need a new enlightenment today. This should be positive, constructive, and affirmative. So there's a great split between religious ethics and, let's go on to the next one, please, and other forms of, and the new morality. I call it eupraxsophy. Now, can you pronounce that, please? Eupraxsophy. Can you say it? Eupraxsophy. People say they can't pronounce it. Exxon Mobil. Look at that. EU, good. Praxis, practice, or conduct. Sophia, wisdom, scientific, philosophical, and ethical, and good practical wisdom. So I'm saying that we need a new eupraxsophy. What are you? We're not a religion. We're not a religion. We draw upon science, philosophy, ethics, literature, human experience. We're eupraxsophy. That's what I label it, eupraxsophy. Go on to the next. Incidentally, this following slide was put up done by the Chinese. They're all showing overheads, and I was so busy I didn't have to do it. So I wrote it out, and they got this up in about 45 minutes. I couldn't get over how smart they were, but really very, very capable people. So in my writings, in my book, could you show my books now at this point? We'll come back to that. They're on the side, and that's a commercial. I'll be glad to sign them. Go ahead. I spent my lifetime in working this out. I think my most important book is The Transcendental Temptation, a critique of religion and the paranormal. And I grieve that the skeptics of Ontario are not willing to cooperate with the Center for Inquiry, because we have so much to learn in modern skeptical movement, the examination of the paranormal, the same processes as in religion. That's what I try to show in this book. Second, my most important book on ethics is Forbidden Fruit. I think that's been translated to about nine languages, including, another one is The Courage to Become the Virtues of Humanism, published by Greenwood Press. Prager. Eupraxsophy, there she be. Eupraxsophy, living without religion. We need to build new institutions. We're overwhelmed by churches and temples and synagogues and mosques. We need to build new religions where non-religious people can gather and find common interests and share values together.
Now we have the paperback.
And then living without religion. Okay, eupraxsophy was difficult to pronounce. I poured out a paperback. Oh, this is my new one, Affirmation, Joyful and Creative Endeavor. I only had one copy. I gave it to Don Cullen because he gave me a copy of his poetry tonight. Okay. Okay. And this is a one that grew out of the conference in Toronto. You know, we met in Toronto in 2004. How many people were at that conference? 2004. It was on science and ethics. We had a great number of Canadian scientists and philosophers. We met at the University of Toronto. And this book is a compilation of many of the articles, plus many others. And I'm saying that science can help us to make wise choices. Okay. So we're running, there's my favorite one, exuberance. And my wife says to me, please don't get up this morning and be exuberant again. She get up and I tap dance her and sing, and she's French, you know, they have a pessimistic view. I love them. Okay, I just mentioned some of the books. What is that? Oh, okay, here we go. All right, so let me go quickly through my theory. First, I think there are certain common moral decencies that we share. I've been to 60 countries of the world. I find everywhere people are wonderful, can be, loving, kind, particularly on a day-to-day basis. number one, integrity. The first one was integrity. Maybe you showed it. Take it off. The first principle, that you ought to tell the truth, be honest, be sincere. Okay, second, we should show fidelity to our friends, relatives, and neighbors in the communities in which we should be dependable. Third, we ought to be benevolent. We should express goodwill towards other persons. Yes, I consider that to be basic. We should exude goodwill. And I find all these nasty people, so bitter and sour. That they tell me, oh, the problems of the world are so great, I can't enjoy myself. I think you have to have a goodwill towards everybody. Also, a beneficent attitude. We should assist people where we can. We should help to increase the goods in life. And then the final, our fairness. We ought to show gratitude to others. We should seek justice and equity. We should be cooperative, and we should negotiate. We should settle things peaceably. Those are the Commonwealth decency. And then in my writings, I've gone on to achieve a good life, and that's what we want. We have obligations to others, but every person has an obligation to himself. And so, what are the principles of achieving a good life? Well, first, we have good health. Nutrition and exercise. And I exercise an hour every day. I've invented a new exercise. I've never copyrighted it, so don't take my trademark. I call it aerobic trotting. Every morning I trot, but I go like this at the same time. One person asked me, what are you, a bird? I go down the street. An hour every day gets the whole body going.
That's exuberance.
Exuberance. But you need self-control and moderation. You need self-respect and self-esteem, high motivation, such as Justin Trottier has, tremendous. Right? The capacity, you need the capacity for loving others. That's so important. We've emphasized reason and we de-emphasize love. And that includes orgasmic, yes, having an orgasm. Filial, for our parents. Friendship, for our children. Collegiality. We need to care for other human beings. What's the next one? I can't see it from the side.
Commitment to a beloved cause.
What? You tell me.
Commitment to a beloved cause.
Commitment to a beloved cause, such as the Center for Inquiry. Yes. And I say, the joie de vivre, the ability to enjoy life and live it up.
The achievement motive.
Achievement motive and creativity. They're all part of the good life. We shouldn't be ashamed about that fact. And you have these naysayers among us, the pallbearers and the theologians and the bishop. Don't do this, don't do that.
The dried up prunes.
Life is very important. You've got to live it. You only have one life. One needs to balance one's commitment to others, family, children, parents, lovers, friends in the community, in the face-to-face area of interaction. To achieve a full life, individuals need to develop certain excellences, and I go through the excellences. I think that's what we want to emphasize. Go on to the next one. Excellence. To achieve a full life, we need to develop altruism. You know, in the affirmations of Humanism, which I published on the inside cover of Free Inquiry, and that has gotten more attention than almost anything I've ever written, the affirmations of Humanism. How many people remember who get the Free Inquiry? You see them, yeah. It says, we believe in optimism rather than pessimism, hope rather than despair, learning in the place of dogma, truth instead of ignorance, joy rather than guilt or sin, tolerance in the place of fear, love instead of hatred, compassion over selfishness, beauty instead of ugliness, and reason rather than blind faith or irrationality. We believe in the fullest realization and the best and noblest that we are capable of as human beings. And I know that I was watching Alan Greenspan this morning on television, his new book. Ayn Rand called him the Undertaker. That was her word of endearment about him. And she was against altruism. I mean, she was a critic of the Soviet system, and she believed in complete individualism, and she thought everyone was selfish. And although I believe in the free market with regulations, nonetheless, I believe that not everybody is selfish, and that altruism is very deep in the human heart, and we need to cultivate that as humanists. Okay. So, yes, that's my summa bonum. I've redefined happiness, exuberance. We live in affluent societies such as this great city of Toronto and this great country of Canada. And what is the purpose of life? I call it the lust for living, the necessity. I can't read my own stuff on the side here. The intensity of living, ebullient, juliant, throbbing, and pulsating, billowing, bursting at the seams, overflowing with energy, bubbling, effervescent, buoyant, fertile, fruitful, delirious, joyful, exultant, vivacious. Peak experiences, romantic love. George Bernard Shaw said, it's too bad it's wasted on the young. Ecstasy, orgasm, Vivaldi's Four Seasons, Beethoven's Ninth, Bela Bartok, rainbows, roller coasters, sunrise and sunset, circus clowns and fudge sundaes, French gourmet dinner, Whitman's Leaves of Grass, rainforest, cherry blossoms, the Garden of Evil. Sorry. I was reading the next one. 72 virgins. Someone in New York says, you know, that was a mistake. A suicide bomber kills a lot of people, goes to heaven. And he meets George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. He says, where are the two virgins? And God replies, they were Virginians. Harems, youthful warriors, spring growth, puppies and kittens. Life is wonderful, and we ought to recognize that fact. And humanism is the willingness to develop the goodness of living, you see, in spite of all the problems that we have. Okay, now in conclusion. Well, I'll leave that. Go on to the next one. We've led the battle for civil liberties, for euthanasia, for same-sex sexuality, for the right of a person to choose his or her own life. Okay. But as I said, we live now.
Doesn't matter which
Is it upside down or downside up? When you go to Australia, they tell us that they're upside and we're downside. Okay. We live in one world, one planet, a blue-green dot, seen from afar, as Carl Sagan said. We need a new commitment to humanity as a whole. The first underlying principle of planetary humanism is the need to respect the dignity and worth of all persons in the world community, aside from their political, ethnic, racial, religious, or gender background. We need to act so as to mitigate human suffering and decrease the sum of human happiness wherever it is possible to do so. Okay. And we need a new planetary Bill of Rights. This has been outlined in Humanist Manifesto 2000, which was published in 1999 in Frank Quarry and been translated into 19 languages and lays out an agenda for the future of humankind. What I particularly find offensive in the foreign policy of my beloved United States of America is the fact that they've abandoned the ideals that we had after World War II, that we would develop principles of collective security, that we would develop new institutions to guard against war, to protect the environment, that we develop a world court to guarantee human rights everywhere. And they've abandoned and abrogated treaties. And they've abandoned the Bill of Rights. We should strive to end poverty and malnutrition and to provide adequate health and shelter for people everywhere on the planet. We should strive to provide economic and adequate income, not only for people within our country, but everywhere, so far as we can. Every person should be protected from unnecessary injury, danger, and human rights. And individuals should have the right to education. And so I think you only have one or two. No, next one, please. Next one. Yes. What we've discovered from anthropology and genetics, population, no way around. That's from Australia. So, that's right. There we go. Okay. Here. So, as far as we can tell, the human species immigrated from Africa into Europe, across into Australia, over the Bering Sea when it was frozen, into Canada, and these were Mongolians and Chinese, down through North and South America, and we're truly part of one human species, and racial differences do not mean anything. They're isolated breeding pockets for a period of time. The American Christian nationalists, or neoconservative nationalists, maintain that America, the United States, was founded by the descendants of the Mayflower, who came over to Plymouth Rock, which we celebrated yesterday or day before on Thanksgiving. The first Americans were Chinese. Remember that. The first Americans were Mongolians. The first Canadians were Mongolians. They were not English or French or Spanish or Dutch. They came here, and when we took a cruise, the Center for Inquiry has a cruise over here, cruise to Alaska and to Canada to see the melting glaciers. I was so struck by the features of the people, the Eskimo Indian in this part of the country, to show the relationship to those from Asia. Canada is a land open to immigration. We all come from somewhere else. And the United States also is a product of immigration. We are multicultural products of this. And now, this is the epoch in which we need to recognize that we're all citizens of the planet, that we have an obligation and duty to preserve our abode against those who would destroy it. Yes, a blue-green dot seen from afar. And that we have an obligation to our fellow humans on this planet, no matter where they live. That seems to me to be an agenda for the humanism of the future. We can find new ground, new moral principles that hopefully can inspire people. You don't have to believe in this religion in order to be saved. You don't have to adopt this ideology in order to be rescued. You're part of the human species, and we're all part of that species, and we carry within us the genes and the DNA that we share in common. And so I leave you with this positive thing. Although we are critical of religion, and we're critical of the paranormal, and we want to use the methods of science and reason to understand who and what we are and about this vast universe, we also have an obligation to create a new morality, a morality that helps to fill the best of which we are capable. And it seems to me that in the last analysis, that is the purpose of the centers for inquiry, which are developing worldwide. These centers of inquiry are interested in a new enlightenment, and this seems to me both to be a compelling and urgent and heroic ideal to work for. And so I came here tonight to present something about the Center for Inquiry. Thank you for coming. I'm very pleased indeed. if you have any comments or criticisms, I welcome them, so please. Anyone have any questions, comments? If you don't have a microphone in the audience.
We do have one there. We can form a line on the side.
Any comments or questions?
Well,
Yes.
I would just first like to thank you for doing the most courageous job imaginable, the most important cause in the world that has ever existed, in my opinion. I think no one has done more for this, and I just hope that my kids are able to one day hear you speak live. I just wanted to comment on one thing that I noticed about the migration of the peoples to North America and South America. I know that Dr. Chris DiCarlo might have something to say.